Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different, a gold find barb. If you're the type of player who likes to make lots and lots of gold in Diablo II, this is the video for you. Alright, let's talk gearing options. It's pretty simple. The TLDW is stack as much gold find as you possibly can. But let's go over it. This is my second gold find barbarian, this is my pluggy barb, and I feel like I know a gold find barb pretty well. The other one I did was on a previous ladder, but here we go. So you want 2 crystal swords with 6 sockets, stick 6 lemurons in them. That'll give you 450% gold find on each one. Gloves, there's no better gloves than the Chanseys. They're pretty easy to get a pair. The rings, dwarf stars, you need 2 of them. They each give you 100% gold find, but they serve another purpose. Because we're going to be running Travincal where there are hydras all over the place, the fire absorb is actually really useful on a dwarf star. So between the 2 rings, you have 30% fire absorb. It helps your survivability quite a bit. There's no perfect belt for it. If you want a gold wrap, get a gold wrap. But personally, I just like to use magic or rare belts, whatever I can find. I got lucky with this belt. It has fire resist on it. I got this from cows, I want to say. Hell cows. Just basically get as much gold find as you can in this slot. For boots, pretty much use whatever you can find. Rares, magic boots, whatever you can find that have gold find on them. Until you can get Inferno Strides. I don't think these boots are really all that expensive if you're doing trading on the realms. They're not usually boots that people look for. But they're perfect for this character. Not only do they have gold find and faster run walk on them, they also give you max fire res as well as 30% fire res. They're very useful on this character because there is a lot of fire damage in Trav. Amulet, whatever you can find. Again, I lucked out. It has reasonably high gold find. I think magic amulets can go up to 80% gold find. Mine has 73, so it's pretty good. But the real kicker here is that it gives all res. If you can find an amulet or a belt that give you resistances, you're going to be doing really well. Remember with your belt to get 4 rows if you can. Helmet, you have a couple different options here. I prefer Immortal Kings. And the reason for that is because it starts with a little bit of gold find, but then it also has 2 sockets, so you could put lemurons in it. So it can get you up to 137% gold find. The real cool thing about this helmet is that it gives you 2 to war cries, which means that your battle orders is going to be much more effective. For charms, it's pretty easy. Get a Geeds, because it gives you high gold find. This replaces 2 to 3 other grand charms, the Geeds by itself. Get as high of gold find as you can find, with a caveat. If you're on the realms, I recommend getting as high of reduced vendor prices as you can find if you're going to be doing any gambling. Since you can only have 1 Geeds charm on you while you're on the realms, I recommend that the vendor prices is actually more important than the gold find. If you're in pluggy, you can have a bunch of different Geeds in your stash, so you could have a high gold find percentage one for when you're actually doing the runs, and then a high vendor price reduction one for when you're gambling. The rest of your grand charms are just whatever you can get. They can go up to 40%, so try to get as high as you can. Small charms can get up to 10% gold find on them. If you can get other cool mods like resistances, I have a 3% light res and a 5% cold res. If you can get other cool mods on them, fine, but the small charms can get up to 10%, and they're actually really common. If you're playing on the realms, I don't really expect you to have an Annelius charm. It's not really a requirement in this build. The only reason I have the Torch and Annie in my inventory is for higher resistances. You can make do without them. You can fill these slots with another Grand Charm if you want to. On swap, I recommend just having +3 to Warcry sticks. I got them from Mala in Act 5 in Hell. Just keep refreshing her inventory until you find the sticks that you want. They also come in like Javelin flavor. I prefer the throwing knives because they take up less space. That's pretty much the gear. There are a couple alternatives here. If you don't have or don't want to use an Immortal King, you can use a Crown of Thieves. It gives you a reasonable amount of gold find starting off. It also gives you fire resist, which is pretty cool. And you can stick a Lemon in it if you socket it. So mine has 139% gold find on it. I throw this on my mercenary depending on what build I'm in. You could also use Alibabas if you want. For me personally, I prefer the crystal swords because you actually end up getting about 100 more gold find per sword than you do with the Alibaba. One thing I definitely recommend is an edge bow. The reason for this is if you're gambling. It reduces vendor prices by 15%. So when you start to gamble, just throw this on your character, have a Geeds in your inventory, and you're going to be good to go. You're going to reduce the cost of gambling, could be up to 30%. I almost forgot to talk about the armor. The armor you want is Wealth in a 3-socket armor, of course, Lemco tier. Very easy one word to make. If you prefer not to use a wealth for some reason, I don't know why you would not want to use a wealth, but if you wanted to use something else, you could use a gold skin if you have it. It gives you 100% gold find, and if you socket it and put a lemon in it, it can be up to 150. Cool thing about the gold skin is it gives you 35 all res, so if you're really struggling to stay alive, maybe this would be a better option for you. So you're probably looking at this gear and wondering, how on earth am I going to kill anything? Well, you're not. You're going to survive, and you're going to use crowd control so that your mercenary can kill things. I'm currently using an Act 5 mercenary named Bill. This is Bill the Barbarian. The reason I'm using Bill is because cool factor. Everybody uses an Act 2 Merc, so I figure I want to be different. I want to use an Act 5 Merc. I like them more. Of course, an Act 2 Merc will work just fine. You don't have to use an Act 5 Merc. Use whatever you want. If you do use an Act 2 Merc, I recommend a Might Merc, which is Nightmare Offensive. The reason for that is because it'll just make them do more damage in Trav, and that means faster runs, which means more runs, which means more gold find over time. But I like Bill the Barbarian, so that's what I'm choosing to use. Weapons for the mercenary, there's a lot of different options. I chose to make a Passion and an Eth Highland Blade. You can make this in any weapon, so if you wanted to make it in Thresher for an Act 2 Merc, you could do that. Passion is a decent weapon. It's not really top of the line, of course, but it's very cheap to make, right? Dal or El Lem, it's not really anything special. The cool thing about Passion is that it does hit blinds target plus 10, which means it gives you a little bit better crowd control. If your Merc is having trouble surviving, that can actually be a good benefit to you. It does give you 75% gold find. So the way gold find on your mercenary works is if the mercenary gets the kill, it adds your character's gold find with his gold find, and then the total percentage is how much extra gold is being dropped. If you get the kill, it's only your gold find percentage that's factored in. That's partially why our mercenary is going to be doing all the killing. Also, he can kill things, and we can stack as much gold find as possible without hurting our damage. The important thing about your mercenary's weapon is don't have cold damage on it. Because if there's cold damage on it, or slain monsters rest in peace, then you're not going to be able to hork bodies. When I say hork, I'm referring to the skill find item. You're not going to be able to hork bodies as frequently because they might shatter. So don't have any cold damage. A lot of you are probably like, I'm going to make an Obedience and an Eth Thresher. I'm going to throw it on an Act 2 Merc. Obedience is an amazing weapon, but it's not well suited to this purpose because it has a little bit of cold damage on it. So just pay attention to the cold damage thing and then make whatever weapon you want. I like Passion. It works pretty reasonably well. For armor, I chose a Treachery. It gives you 45 IAS. When Fade procs, he's a tank. It gives you 50% gold find, so why not? You can put whatever armor you want. Again, just make sure it doesn't add cold damage somehow. For helmet, I currently have a G-Face with an rune in it to give him more resistances. The G-Face is for the Crushing Blow, which means he kills things a lot quicker. G-Face, I think, is a perfect helmet for this because it increases his damage substantially. We're only going to be playing on players 1, so you don't have to worry about diminishing returns on higher players count with Crushing Blow. Another note about the gear, if you're going to use an Act 2 Merc, I was using an Insight actually really effectively. I put it in an Eth Thresher and it kills things perfectly fine. It's a relatively cheap ring word to make, so there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to use an Insight. Use whatever you've got, right? These runs are not very difficult. They are a little bit challenging, but they're not very difficult. We will be doing them in Hell. You can do them in Nightmare if you want. It takes a fraction of the time, and you'll get a fraction of the gold. So maybe over time, you'll do more runs, and you'll get the same amount of gold. I'm not sure, but there's also basically no chance of dying in Nightmare. That's the nice thing about Nightmare. But on my testing in Nightmare, I found I was only getting up to about 300,000 gold with a fully optimized character. On Hell, sometimes I get up to 1 million. So my average in Hell is right around 500,000 to 600,000, but sometimes I get up to 1 million. I pretty much never went over 300k in Nightmare though. So your mileage may vary, but that's been my experience. Okay, now we're going to talk skills. Basically, there are 2 different builds that you can use. There's the Leap build, and then there's the Warcry build. I'm going to show you the skill point allocation for both, and I'm going to show you one run for each of them, so you can kind of see the playstyle difference for them. They both work effectively. I've used them both successfully many times, so it really just comes down to how you want to play. We're going to start with the Leap build. Leap, it's very useful on a Gold Find Barb because it stuns enemies when you land. The higher your skill points, the more radius of stun you get. I found that between 21 and 25 skill points invested in Leap, they all give you the same radius. So if you're going to put high points in Leap, I recommend getting to 21 points after Battle Command. Here, I'll go ahead and buff Battle Command. So you can see it's a 17.3 yard radius, and at 22 points it's going to be the same thing. I went all the way up to 25, and up to 25 it was all 17.3. Honestly, I think 17.3 is perfectly fine. That's pretty much the entire screen, maybe bigger than the entire screen. Everything's going to get stunned. It's ridiculous. If you don't want to put heavy points in Leap, you can go down to 17 points after Battle Command. 17 through 20 points will give you 16.6 yard radius. So you can go down to 17 points or go up to 21 points. I wouldn't go in between at all. It's just a waste of points. And I wouldn't go any more than 21 points. It's also a waste of points. For me, because I have my Torch and Annie, I'm actually saving a few points in Leap, and I'm still meeting the 21 point threshold. So it's pretty nice. I can allocate those skill points elsewhere. Where I chose to allocate them, I put 1 in increased speed, just helps you move around a little bit quicker. It's kind of nice. It's a convenience thing. I also maxed out natural resistances. That's mostly for the fire. Again, Hydras are going to be there on every single run, and between the 30% fire absorb from my Dwarf Stars and my 85% fire resistance, fire damage doesn't do anything to me. Lightning resist can also be important because sometimes the council spawns lightning enchanted, so that will help out a lot. Other skill points I've allocated: 1 in Battle Command, max Battle Orders, max Shout. Now, Find Item is interesting. You want to get to around 21 or 22 points because that'll get you to about 52% chance to hork an item off of a body. If you don't want to invest that heavily in it, then you can get to 16 points after Battle Command, and that'll get you to 49%. So you can see there's diminishing returns there. You have to go an additional 8 points or so just to get another 3% chance to hork items. To me, I didn't really have anywhere else to put my extra skill points, so I figure why not go heavy into Find Item. In the Warcry build, it's a little bit different because it's not quite as safe as the Leap build, so I ended up only going to 16 points after Battle Command when in the Warcry build. Okay, now let's talk about the other build. The other build is, of course, Warcry. Basically what this does is it stuns and injures, although the damage isn't significant at all. So for our purposes, it stuns enemies around you. If you max it out, you get around a 6-second stun length. So they're not stunned for very long at all, but it does keep your Merc alive. So basically, about every 5 seconds or so, you cast Warcry. I also use Battle Cry pretty effectively at skill level 8, which is only 1 hard point in it for me right now. It lasts for about half a minute. So every so often I'm casting Battle Cry. That just causes my Merc to kill things a little bit quicker. In this build, other things you want to max out are, of course, Battle Orders and Shout. These two are universal between the two builds. They keep your Merc alive. They keep you alive. They're very nice. I also maxed out Natural Resistances again. I kind of needed it. 1 in increased speed. It was just kind of nice. I had an extra point that I put into Iron Skin because there really wasn't anywhere else to put it. I didn't put anything in the combat tree. Okay, so now I'm going to do 2 runs, 1 in each build, and we'll see the results. Remember, RNG being what it is, your mileage may vary. You can see I have 0 gold in my inventory and 0 in the stash. So I'm starting off on a clean slate so you can see how much I get at the end of the 2 runs. But here we go. I'm currently in the Warcry build. I'll do the Leap build afterwards. I'm going to go to Trav. I'm going to buff my Merc. I recommend having Throw on left click, that way you don't accidentally attack things. I'm going to come in, I'm going to stun things. I'm going to let Bill do his thing. I'm going to make sure things stay stunned. Now the disadvantage to the Warcry build is that it does not stun the council members themselves, it only stuns the minions. So it's helpful, but it's not a definite thing. I recommend horking bodies frequently because if you have to go to town for something, the bodies will likely disappear. Ishmael Vilehand can spawn physical immune. If he does, you might as well just reset the game because you're not going to be able to kill him. You can see I'm horking the bodies. This run was a little bit dangerous. I used basically all of my potions.
I can't carry.
However, I've picked up 432k. There's still someone inside. Torque Ice Fist is inside. So I'm going to run in here, grab him. Lower his effectiveness real quick with Battle Cry. Let Bill do his thing. You notice my potions. This row is supposed to be rejuves. This row is health potions. This row's mana. You notice I have scrolls on my belt. That's because I'm not carrying a tome in my inventory. Just a little trick for you. Alright, so that ended up not being worth it, killing him, because he didn't drop any gold. Don't forget to hork all the bodies. Come back through. Just right-click everywhere.
I am overburdened.
I don't recommend picking up the items and selling them. It kind of takes too long. My personal opinion is that it's not usually worth it. It's better to just save and exit, start a new run, and have at it. So on that run, you can see we made 432,000 gold. That was with Warcry. You notice it can be quite dangerous if you get bad spawns on the council, and there's a good chance that your Merc will die. And if that happens, then you have to spend 50,000 gold to res him, and at that point, you're losing gold. You're losing time efficiency, so try to keep him alive if you can. I went through 4 rejuves and 4 health potions to keep him alive. Okay, so I've respec'd into the leap build. You can see I'm at 20 points in leap without battle command. Once I have battle command up, it'll put it to the next radius breakpoint. And I have 21 points in find item. Once again, with battle command, I'll hit a new number. Everything else is pretty much the same as the Warcry build. I max battle orders, I max shout, I max natural resistance, I take 1 and increase speed. And anything I have left over, I'm dumping into Iron Skin, by the way. I think I only had 1 point in this build. But, same thing, we're going to go to Trav, we're going to buff up. Now, Leap can be quite a bit safer than the Warcry build, but it's also very finicky. You basically have to non-stop leap. What you do is you hold shift, and you just start leaping. It has a very large radius, so do short, quick little leaps, and it'll stun things. You can see it's knocking everything back. And it'll stun things so that Bill can do his work. It's very nice. It actually puts the monsters in FHR lock animation. It's quite a bit safer than the Warcry build, and I'm actually probably going to use the Leap build from here on out when I'm doing gold find runs. It takes a little bit more time, but it can be quite nice. It's nice for me because I have my council, they all spawn right in this area, so pretty much all I have to do is run in and start leaping and get my Barb, get my mercenary positioned correctly, and then everything else will follow. If you have a spawn on your map where they're kind of scattered between this area and inside the room, then it makes it quite a bit more difficult to use Leap, and it's quite finicky at that point. Another advantage Leap has over Warcry is that Leap will actually affect the council members themselves. Warcry does not. It will not stun them, but Leap will. So here, I've horked everything just about. I'm going to pick up all the gold. There's still a couple monsters left alive that I'm going to take care of in a second. I just wanted to get everything horked and all of the gold picked up. I'm going to bring my mercenary in here so he can take care of Torque. I don't really need to leap for one guy. I'm just going to stand here. I'll chug a potion. That time he actually gave me some gold, so that's pretty nice. I think there was one more guy alive out here. Weird spawn on him. Yeah, this council member right here. He gave me a little bit of gold as well. So everything should be good now. Yeah, all the bodies are horked, so we're going to go to town and compare the results. So The gold find was the exact same. The gear was the exact same. I got just under 400,000 gold on the first run. I put it all in my stash. It was actually a little bit more than that, but I had to buy new potions and stuff, so it went down a little bit. But I got about 400,000 gold on the first run and almost double that on the second run. That's just RNG. It has nothing to do with the build. The gear was the exact same for both runs. So you can see it's quite effective. I recommend Leap. If you're going to make a choice, if you cannot respec, if you're on the realms and you cannot respec as often as you want, I would recommend Leap. It's a lot safer. You won't have to have as good of resistances as I have to do well. It just kind of stuns everything. As long as you hold shift and you just hold down the left click button, you'll just keep everything stunned. Look at the radius on this. You can see these guys getting pushed back. It's quite nice. The Warcry build is a little bit less boring and a little bit less finicky than the Leap build, in my opinion, but they're both effective. They both get the job done. You just have to know how to play them effectively. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. As you can see, a Barbarian can be quite effective at gold finding. It just comes down to the right playstyle and the right gear. If you like this video, I recommend hitting the like button. If you like this content, I recommend subscribing. I usually do Uber's videos with budget builds and things like that, but there was a request made for the gold find Barb, so I figured I'd get that knocked out because it was a pretty short video to record. Thank you guys for watching. Take care.